Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes. This is a podcast about professional wrestling. This is what we're going to be talking about for the next couple of hours right here, wherever you're deciding to plug this in. And there's a couple of places you can do this. Over on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, or on your favorite podcast application. You can listen, watch, you can do whatever you like, whichever suits your lifestyle best. That's what I strive for, to adapt to your lifestyle, to give you the wrestling analysis and commentary you deserve, while not, making you, forcing you to make tremendous life choices to accommodate me. No, I'm accommodating you. Why? Because I care about you. I care about having you here with me, listening, enjoying, and hopefully leaving a like on YouTube and maybe even subscribing if it's the first time you're here and you want to hang out and see how things go. Those are fantastic ideals to have in life. You can also leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or a 5-star rating on Spotify to help grow the podcast over on that side. Look, any little thing you can do to help on that front, it helps tremendously. These seem like insignificant details, but they're not. They're tremendous, and you're tremendous for helping out on that front. The Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast is recorded every Tuesday night live at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you ever want to come in and join, if you ever have the opportunity to do so, that'd be great, because we have a good time, and there's a lot of stuff that happens on the live stream, essentially, that doesn't end up in the the final cut that you're listening to here. So come on in. There's community stuff. There's games. We have a good time. So come and join us. It's a good time. You can also join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. That's also a good time. The link is in the description. And yeah, look, busy as always is Warren. There's Thursday coming up with the AEW Dynamite review. That's not that far off. It's coming right up. And then there's the Collision review on Sunday. I do those regularly. And then just very recently, just a couple of days ago, I had Fred Moreland from the Good, the Bad, and the Hungry podcast, which covers AEW on a weekly basis, over on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. He joined me to talk about AEW. We did a bit of a video called The State of AEW, where we, a lot of things came to a head. So we figured, hey, why don't we take a pause and take a look at where we're at, where things are going, and how we feel about stuff, So that was an interesting watch. That's also available on the podcast as well. If you haven't checked it out yet, I highly suggest you do. But as for today, of course, we record this on a Tuesday night, and this was recorded on September 12th. So you're probably listening to this on the 13th at the very least. Today, we're going to talk about the WWE and UFC TKO merger that happened, that was finalized today. Everything was finalized and official. They're on the New York Stock Exchange now. It's all, we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to review Impact Victory Road 2023 on top of that. Talk about AEW's business. Just a couple of subjects, but a big podcast nonetheless. Thank you all for being here. Let's stop talking about it and let's just get to it. The weekly wrestling inspection. Here we go. Well, I don't know if you heard. I don't know if this has reached your ear balls yet, but WWE has finally completed the merger with UFC into TKO, a brand spanking new company in the world of high octane sports and live entertainment business. It's all happened. It's been coming up for months now since the merger announcement was made with Endeavor last spring. And now it's happening. It's here, folks. It's done as of today, actually. September 12, 2023. Both companies are now together. Now, first of all, I want to get this out of the way. Straight off the bat. Okay? WWE merging with TKO is a big deal. And I saw a lot of people getting really upset. It's like, oh yeah, okay, it's a big deal, but just stop talking about it. Stop talking about it. It's just a merger. Stop talking about it. It's just a merger. But as a longtime wrestling fan and someone who's been following this for a while and doing this for, about 5 years at this point, I think, a little less. You cannot understate how significant it is you cannot understate how significant it is that there is a time in history where WWE is not owned and or operated by a McMahon. It is no longer a family business. And this is, I think, something that is escaping, the scope of a lot of folks. And I know there's a lot of new wrestling fans. I think this is one of these things where you can draw a line between, well, who's fairly new versus who's not, who smells like mothballs. Like for myself, strictly speaking, I have never watched pro wrestling without Vince McMahon being involved in some way or fashion. Now, he disappeared for a couple of months, and I've been told that he still is not involved, but nonetheless, Vince not having anything to do with WWE, not just Vince, Stephanie, Shane, people that even in storylines in this company were being established as the heirs to the throne, right? Like this is going to be your succession. This is what I'm leaving you all, when I shed my mortal coil. None of this is coming to pass. None of this is happening. And it's even more mind-boggling when you go back and you look at the entire history of WWE, WWF, WWF. Like this was Vince Sr.'s company. Like it has always been a McMahon thing. And now it is in a spot, in a place where it is no longer operated, where there is no longer a McMahon in charge of the company. Now, you might want to start splitting hairs and saying, well, Warren, Vince is still on the board of TKO, so and so. Yeah, let's start splitting hairs, but he's not the chairman, the president of WWE. And that is absolutely bonkers to me. It's still something that is significant, and it establishes an entirely new path moving forward for this company, one that we just don't know about because we're losing all references, sensibilities moving forward. This is kind of what I said when Vince resigned last year, when he was forced to resign. This is kind of like around those same lines, but now it's really legitimate. It's like we are entering entirely new territory here for a bunch of reasons, not just because the McMahons are gone, but that is a key component here where we just don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen moving forward. So trust me when I tell you, and maybe you're even listening to this and you're saying, Warren, yes, I get it. But I feel like there's a lot of people who don't get it. And am I expressing the mind-boggling aspect of this adequately enough to convince people that WWE ending up in the hands of people who aren't McMahon's is a big deal? No, probably not. I think that if you're still on the side of it's not that big a deal, I'm probably not doing a good job convincing you otherwise. But there's a reason why everyone is talking about it, why people are hammering it home, why there were, tons of posts all over social media saying yesterday the WWE as we know it is is ending today, because it was true and is still true. So if we want to do the reporting properly, if we want to chat about what happened, let's just wrap this up. Let's just give a good old-fashioned report here. Of course, Endeavor, UFC's parent company, and WWE announced today the closing of its merger and the launch of TKO, a company that will combine the forces and create, like Vince called it, a global live sports and entertainment company. TKO began trading today on the New York Stock Exchange, and Endeavor, in and about itself, will own 51% of the new company, and WWE shareholders will own 49% of it. Now, we talked about this a couple of years ago, a couple of weeks ago. It hasn't been that long. Just a couple of weeks ago when the structure when the filings were done for TKO and we got an idea of the structure and so on, we talked about this a little bit. There's maybe some stuff that if you listened or watched a couple of weeks ago, maybe there's some things that they're going to sound familiar to you when we're talking with what we're talking about right now. But just to remind everyone, Vince McMahon no longer has these special shares that gives him 10 times the votes, or like Stephanie and Linda did, right? It's no longer just there's no longer that. There's no B class shares and A class shares. Now it's just A class shares all around. Just to clear that up, just before what's going to happen. People are like, oh, it's Vince's company, he can do whatever he wants. Well, it's not quite that case anymore, and it's no longer his company. He is on the board of TKO. WWE doesn't belong to him anymore. Anyway, let's continue. TKO has a valuation of $21.4 billion. That seems like a lot, but I mean, not like... I'm in no position to say whether it's being overvalued or not, overevaluated or not, but $21.4 billion. That's the value of the merge between WWE and UFC. And WWE was purchased for, what, $9 billion? Let me see here. Server error. Get your act together. 21 million. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but it seems to me that was around it, right? I feel like we were talking about 9 million a couple of months ago, and we were like, man, that seems like a lot. And we were speculating maybe Vince is overvaluing the company to sort of get some, in order to maybe push some potential suitors away, give the impression that he's, working to get the best deal, but in fact, he just wants to keep the company for himself. That was legitimately a strategy that people were talking about and made sense when you think about it as well. But look, in and about itself, $21.4 billion is what TKO is worth. And in the press release said that this was going to be a company that will serve more than 1 billion young and diverse fans, reaching viewers in 180 countries and producing more than 350 annual live events. 1 billion people. That is, nearly 1/8 of the entire planet. Our customer base, are part of the customer base of TKO. If you want to look at it that way. I love press releases. As it was previously announced, TKO is going to be led by Ari Emanuel, the Chief Executive Officer, who also continues to be the CEO of Endeavor. Mark Shapiro, the President and Chief Operating Officer. That will be his two roles. He also continues to be President and Chief Operating Officer of Endeavor as well. Andrew Schleimer, the CFO. Seth Cross, who is the Chief Legal Officer, and he continues to be Chief Legal Officer of Endeavor. And Dana White is now the Chief Executive Officer of UFC, and Lawrence Epstein remains Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of UFC. What about our boy Nick Khan? Oh, don't worry about Nick. He continues to be president of WWE. His role remains unchanged. The board of directors of TKO is led by Vince McMahon as executive chairman of the board and consists of 11 members, including Misters Emanuel, Shapiro, and Khan. In addition to the following directors, we've talked about these people again a couple of weeks ago. We did a couple of profiles real quick. Egon Durbin, who is the co-chief executive officer of Silver Lake. Stephen Koonin, the chief executive officer of the Atlanta Hawks. Jonathan Kraft, president of the Kraft Group. No, it's not the cheese. It's not the cheese. It is this is a company that does live events, live sporting events. Sonia Medina, president and chief executive officer of Reach Resilience. Nancy Tellem, executive chairperson and chief media officer of Echo. Carrie Wheeler, the chief executive officer and a board member of Open Door Technologies. And Peter Bino, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. He was the last appointee that was left. There was one spot open left on the board that was to be appointed by WWE. There you have it. Peter Bino, senior advisor at DLA Piper LLP. People were like, hey, it's going to be Triple H. You couldn't have been more off course. If you were going around saying, they'll bring back Stephanie McMahon. Nope. Vince doesn't want his family involved. TKO will use Endeavor's expertise in quote unquote domestic and international media rights, ticket sales, and yield optimization, event operations, global partnerships, licensing, and premium hospitality to drive revenue growth. Again, I love press releases. I really do. I write some in my day job. I really, really like writing and reading press releases. So, of course, the media blitz was on today. A lot of the members of the new setup of TKO were going around doing media. Not Vince. Vince once again relegated to the sidelines. Go warm up the bench. Vincey Poo. We let the adults handle this. I'm kidding, but also not. Yeah, if I were PR, I would absolutely 100% keep Vince McMahon away from any microphones, any interviews at all. There's no reason. But Lawrence Epstein was on ESPN, had an interview with ESPN, I should say, earlier today. And he said, where we want to get is where every UFC fan is a WWE fan and every WWE fan is a UFC fan. And I'm like, brother, I understand that this press tour today was all like, all smiles and glamour and pumping up the big expectations and getting, investors and stockholders excited about the future. Don't sell your stock. Keep it with us. It's only going to gain in value. Look at all these great ideas we want to do. Because on top of that, we want to be able to we want to be able to make UFC fans out of WWE fans and vice versa. But you know, and I know, maybe I won't assume that you know, but I know that MMA fans, I don't want to say the majority, I don't want to do a sweeping statement, but there's a lot of them that do not like pro wrestling because they see it as inferior to MMA, because they like fights, they love people kicking their faces in for real, and they really don't care about this kind of stuff. They don't give a shit about storylines and whatever. They couldn't care less about it. I'm like, okay. That I understand that. I can get into that. It makes sense. I, for one, for a while I used to, look, I think there was a time there was a little more crossover. I think there was a lot more crossover appeal than, I think there was a lot more crossover appeal years ago, maybe in the 2000s. Whereas now it's more or less, I think MMA fans, have more of a hard stance in regards to pro wrestling, and an MMA fighter who goes to pro wrestling is, it's basically like, oh well, they couldn't cut it anymore, they couldn't make it in the real world anymore, so they're going to go pretend fight in Fantasyland, except for Brock Lesnar. No one will say that about Brock Lesnar. I wouldn't say that about Brock Lesnar. I'd be terrified. What are we talking about? So I think ultimately that's a, like I said, I understand that this is like, it's gleaming, it's just pushing a narrative and whatnot, but ultimately it's just nonsense, right? It's, how can anyone really in WWE really consider that this is going to be a possibility, that we're going to go? I mean, the Venn diagram does cross over, but maybe not as profoundly, maybe not as deeply as everyone thinks it does. At least the statement would assume that they think it does. Let's continue on some more of the little highlights and tidbits from the news here. Epstein also said in the same interview that WWE and UFC could hold major events on the same weekend, looking to package WWE and UFC to sell to tourism authorities. And this is, logical from a business standpoint. And I think, and it's a strategy that already WWE has been employing with great success, going to tourism bureaus and and the like, and coming in and saying, hey, pay us a stipend so that we will bring our major sporting event to you, our major sports entertainment event. Excuse me, what is sports entertainment? Well, you have people doing simulated combat within a ring. Oh, you mean pro wrestling? No. Sports entertainment. That to me makes a lot of business sense. However, it really does. It makes a tremendous amount of sense where you would, as a company, would want to leverage whatever possibility you have to squeeze a ton of money out of local government. I mean, look, that's pretty much it, right? But I wouldn't be surprised moving forward if you do have UFC events on the same weekends. Now, does this mean that maybe some WWE events will start going back to Sundays? Because big UFC shows are usually on Saturdays, or are they going to do the opposite? Are they going to run them together? Run them, like, what would be the strategy? And I'm thinking out loud here. I really didn't, put pen to paper here and really dig into the numbers of this. But what would be the strategy here? It's either you turn around and you move one set of shows to the other weekend night and make a weekend out of it. So it's like, hey, honey, let's go to the big fight weekend over in Vegas. I don't know, something to that effect. Or you just cram everything on one Saturday night and you have two major events coming to your town with two different sets of crowds, which kind of goes against the idea of Epstein saying, oh, well, we want WWE fans to be UFC fans and UFC fans to be WWE fans, because if they all become fans of the same thing and you're getting them to split down the middle between going to the WWE show or the UFC show that are being held on the same night, well, you're cannibalizing your own audience and your own companies, and maybe that doesn't make a ton of sense, So, that's interesting. That's something to consider moving forward. That'll probably be a very lucrative way for them to approach their live shows moving forward. This combo package, making them more and more what's the word I'm looking for? Enticing for cities and towns. I'm talking in the chat how about the WWE pay-per-view model and how it'll change. I haven't seen anything. Look, unless it's the news broke while I started streaming. Let me just make a quick look here. But I don't think anyone has talked about how the pay-per-view model is going to change, which is still, I think, a lot of speculation. But the speculation that we've maintained here on the MrWarrenHayes show is that the freebie, the monthly single price for all the content you can devour is that era is gone, and it's leaving, and it started going away the day that they killed the network in the US, the WWE network. And I still maintain that once the Peacock deal is over, they are absolutely transferring some of their bigger shows to they're transferring their bigger shows to pay-per-view. I would, they start with WrestleMania, SummerSlam, the marquee events, the Royal Rumble. Those are the shows that WWE fans will shell out the extra bucks, right? So the question that we have here moving forward is, what can, because, in chat, we're talking about it right now as well. Let me just see what I can pull up here. But the deal with Peacock is eventually going to come up. I'm trying to remember what the date was. In the chat, we're saying 2026. I feel it's not 2026 because the deal was settled in 2021, and I don't think they would they do 5 years? Maybe. I'm saying they wouldn't, but maybe they would. Yes, we know what it's worth. It's worth $1 billion, and yes, we know it's exclusive, and so on and so forth. Axios says that the deal does expire in 2026. So that is something that's going to happen. But you can rest assured that WWE will find a way to sit down with their partners and try to negotiate, at the very, at the least, taking one or two events off and broadcasting them elsewhere. But that's the question, right? What is this elsewhere? What is this other place that they would Where is this other place that they would air WrestleMania? Where would they put it on pay-per-view? On Fight? I don't think so. Triller? Little too competition-y. ESPN Plus, maybe to test the waters. You could absolutely see. I could absolutely see anyway. WWE and UFC, TKO coming in full head of steam, right? Completely, the chest puffed, thumping their chest, coming into the Peacock offices and saying, "Well, we think we need to revisit a couple of sticking points on our deal and negotiate some kind of way to put WrestleMania on ESPN Plus, test those waters out." I'm not saying that it will happen. What I'm saying is that I could see it happening. I've seen weirder things, and chat's saying, there's discussion in the chat again about pricing, $50 pay-per-view pricing in this era is not going to fly. I disagree. I think that WWE fans are ready to pay the extra for the product. And I'm going to tell you why. Because right now, WWE is filling arenas up and down the United States of America and even some parts of Canada. And they are paying hundreds, if not thousands, multiple thousands, to be seated on the floor, for instance, to these events. This is kind of so they've established that their product is a premium product, that you don't mind paying outrageous prices to go watch a television show be recorded in front of you, editorializing. But so if they turn around and they say, look, even if they get, hear me out here, even if they get 100,000 people buying their pay-per-view, buying WrestleMania, let's just say 100,000 people, and this is more than conservative. This is like this is like bare bottom thinking here. Bare bottom. 100,000 people buying WrestleMania. We're talking about $50, but let's call it what it is: $60 a piece. It's fine. Again, I'm not a math whiz, but that's $6 million. That's $6 million that WWE could make more out of that they're not making right now. And trust me, there is no one in WWE who is not ignorant to the numbers that AEW is pulling for their pay-per-view business. And they're going, well, look, with the reach and the audience that we have and the metrics that we have in regards to their expenditures and so on and so forth, we could be making X amount of $1 million more than if we weren't doing it. I am convinced that everyone in Titan Towers, I know it's not that anymore, but humor me. I'm convinced that everyone in Titan Towers is sitting around looking at these prognostics, these spreadsheets, and saying, "Fuck, why aren't we doing pay-per-view? Look at these schmucks with their rinky-dink programming." That's them saying that, not me. Look at these schmucks, All Elite Wrestling, with their rinky-dink programming, pulling in 130,000 buys, 135,000, 140. We're the World Wrestling Entertainment Company. We will double and triple those numbers. We're gonna push these suckers into the dust. They did 200,000 at Wembley. Imagine if it was us. I mean, and I'm convinced the opposite is much less probable, that they're not considering this seriously. I still think, I would not be surprised that if WrestleMania 40, from the city of brotherly love, where the story will be concluded. What's the meme? Shit, how come I dropped the ball on the meme? Where the where the story will be finished. Christ. am convinced that it's going to happen right then and there. That next thing you know, WrestleMania this year will be available on Peacock 48 hours after. You know? But in the meantime, before we get to that, because it'll be on broadcast on Peacock 2 days later, but if you want to watch it live, ESPN Plus, whatever, that'll be your destination. I would not be surprised if it happens at all. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't happen either, because, it's a business deal and this kind of shit has to be negotiated and so on and so forth. And no one is interested in losing money. But in 2026, holy shit, I don't think WWE stays on Peacock at all. Especially if All Elite Wrestling gets in on the groove and enters into a proper streaming deal with Max, where you can have access to the catalog and buy pay-per-views on a sports tier. Like, all of this is kind of making sense. It just makes a lot of sense, and frankly, this is how the business is moving. And when it comes to WWE, listen, they being WWE are not stupid either. They know they're in a good peak right now. They're going to want to take advantage of this before things start to fall off, before Roman retires, before Cody gets injured. It's like, that's the kind of stuff that they want to do. You want to beat the iron while it's hot. Strike the iron while it's hot. You can also beat it if you want. I feel it demands a little more investment, a little more physical investment than just striking it. Beating it, it requires a little more effort on your part. Or my part. So basically what I'm trying to say with all this iron striking, beating, is that I can't imagine WWE is going to wait. And I don't imagine TKO is going to want to wait. And I don't think Endeavor is going to want to wait to get a return on their investment. And this is the crucial part here that we cannot forget, that Endeavor is going to want their money back, or at least a proportion of their money back, as soon as possible. And for this to stay afloat, for this to work, TKO, WWE has to hold up its end of the deal and show that it will be profitable for its investors, for its stockholders, so that, the price will rise and people will be super stoked about it. I'm just saying, that's probably how it's going to go. Hello, Flowman, member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel, and Mr. Fantastic. Good to see you both, and welcome. Nick Khan was also on the tour here, talking about UFC fighters and how WWE might become their retirement home. Conrad, hey, nice to see you. Conrad of Everything Pro Wrestling Podcast. Good to see you, brother. Welcome. It's been a while. Here's what Nick Khan had to say, quote unquote. UFC fighters are going to stay focused on the UFC, and WWE superstars obviously do something different in our ring. But you also see in the UFC people with big personalities who, once their UFC run is done, once the UFC and the fighter says, hey, maybe now's the time to call it a day, could those people have a longer life at WWE, an extended life with TKO? We think so. So I'm asking you how excited you are for WWE to turn into, the UFC fighters pension plan. How excited are you for broken down 30-plus-year-old UFC fighters coming into the land of sports entertainment, mind you? Conor McGregor. Wouldn't that be just a delight? Again, It makes sense. Crossover from UFC, from MMA to pro wrestling is, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Maybe not peanut butter and jelly. What's a better comp than that? Because peanut butter and jelly is kind of like the ultimate go-to, it's like, I don't know what would be, it's like a cruller. It's like a donut, the crullers. It's just it's something that you recognize. It's classic. It feels comfortable. It's not something that's been around forever and ever, But a peanut butter and bananas is it actually something that exists and that you enjoy, and that it's a good. It's comforting, but not super common. But it's comforting. It goes hand in hand. This has happened for years. So, of course you have to expect this. But the way, Nick brings it up, I'm kind of like, okay, this is going to be the, WWE is going to become UFC's Impact. It's going to become UFC's TNA. All the watchouts can go collect the paychecks still. And it was pointed out in the chat, and I had it here in my notes too. Can you then imagine, the NIL kids that they're bringing in, the college kids, the gymnasts, the gymnasts, the volleyball players, the hockey, all of those coming in, training, doing their little rolls, their little hip tosses, doing promo class, and then having to deal with a fucking MMA fighter. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? Anyway, interesting to think about. Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro were both on David Faber's show Squawk on the Street on CNBC earlier today as well, and they were talking about the deal, of course, and they were asked about media rights because, brother, it is September 12th and nothing has been concluded so far. And I am stunned. I get it that circumstances were very unique this year as opposed to other years where, the rights were usually settled up in the, late spring. Now we're going into the fall and we still don't know what's going on. And all the possibilities are out there. And, now there's pictures of, there's a picture of Triple H sitting next to Jeff Bezos of Amazon at the Met Gala. Wasn't it the Met Gala? I just want to make sure, because if it's not, it'll ruin. I've got a bit. I just want to make sure. It was at a fashion show. It wasn't at the Met Gala. It was at at New York Fashion Week. Not the same. But still, a significant event in the fashion industry. New York Fashion Week is, not negligible for North American fashion. It's not the Met Gala. That's something completely else. I don't know why I thought that was the thing. What the fuck was Triple H doing at a fashion show? Now, I know what he was doing. Hobnobbing, shaking hands, meeting people like Jeff. But Triple H at a fashion show. I just want you to, and unironically, not to do bits, not to go around screaming, suck it, and pointing at his crotch. I want you to close your eyes and just imagine that and how bizarre it is. And then he's sitting right next to one of the richest men on earth. if not the richest. Just wild. So I'm thinking about this, and that continued to spur some speculation that WWE, might be going to stream over on Amazon. But then again, look, we were talking about it. What are we doing with the streaming with Peacock? And I don't think, I don't think at this time of day, I don't think that there is at this moment in time, I should say, that there's no reason for WWE to want to move its flagship programming off behind a streaming service. They're back on broadcast television for the first time in years, right, with the Fox deal. Why would they then be like, no, we're going to go quarantine off onto Amazon? Maybe second run, maybe, I don't know, but it's very weird. Like, that's why the Peacock deal, 2026 and all of this, I don't know. I mean, look, it makes a ton of sense for them to broadcast live on, on cable, on broadcast TV, and then, have a partner where they can do, this, they could do, the second screen bullshit. They could do what you're trying to do on Twitch right now. Remember WWE has this thing with Twitch. Remember that was supposed to be a big deal. Do people even go there? Do people go to watch Drew Gulak and Kathy Kelly or whoever the fuck is doing secondary commentary on Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown? Like, they could do that and and offer the catalog and the back catalog and all that. I mean, that makes sense, but where is Peacock in this mix? And there's so many moving parts at this point. But Emmanuel said this basically in regards to media rights today. He says, quote, "We feel very good where we're at with the WWE now as principals in that negotiation. And I think we'll be in line with what the market thinks will happen with those rights." That sounded like a very learned response, but basically he's saying, we think that whoever decides to buy us is going to agree that what we're doing is good. I'm not telling you what that means. At some point, I'll call and bug you, I promise. He's telling this to David Faber so he can give him the scoopsies. Shapiro added this as well. But keep in mind, this is the quote, "But keep in mind, we're in conversations right now with WWE because those deals are up in October of next year. Both deals, SmackDown and Raw. We're cautiously optimistic and we're having conversations with all of the platforms right now, linear and digital. As Ari mentioned, we have a lot of product and it's a year-round product. WWE and UFC are a full calendar year." There you go. So that's where we're at on the principal questions. And moving forward, what does this mean, Warren? I don't know. All I can tell you is that, same thing that I said at the start, WWE right now is an entirely different company. This is a company that we are going to discover as we go along. We have no idea what is going to happen next as far as this company goes. I think that anything that we think we know, we need to start divesting ourselves with. I know there's been reports, that last night on Raw, because we're recording this on Tuesday, of course. Last night on Raw, Vince was calling in to make changes to his baby. Don't forget, Monday Night Raw will always be Vince McMahon's little baby. That's his and his alone. And I've heard that more than enough times to believe it. So I know Vince is still involved. But the company that we knew to be WWE will likely no longer be how we've learned what we've learned it to be. That doesn't make sense. What it's turned out to be. We're not everything we know about it is going to change because it's not the same people. It's not the same actors. It's not the same. It's a different story, and this can have all sorts of effects that, on levels that we haven't even seen yet. Look, they haven't announced any cuts yet. They haven't announced any firings, but I'm sure there's people both on the WWE and the UFC side, and I'm talking mostly office staff, maybe some production people as well, who are biting their nails and like, I don't know if I still have a job by the end of the week. I don't know. Like, that is entirely possible. And I think it's inevitable. It's something that is going to happen. There are going to be cuts. Are there going to be talent cuts? That's something I wouldn't hold my breath on. I wouldn't think so. I don't assume so. I don't think you should either. I think, operating costs and talent is not two different things, but it's perceived in different ways. How about that? One is less of a spreadsheet. I'll let you figure out which one. So there you go. I mean, and what is this going to do for free agency in pro wrestling? This is another thing that we're going to have to see how things shake out with how WWE is going to operate moving forward. Maybe we have seen the last of, the great. Maybe we have seen the last of the great days of wrestlers pitting two wrestling companies against each other in a bidding war. Maybe those times are over. We don't know how this is going to shake out. We have no idea how this is going to change. But I would not be surprised if the game for North American pro wrestling moving forward changes in how talent is acquired. Wouldn't be surprised at all. We cannot undermine how significant this is. We really, really, really can't. Oh, and Nick Khan was also asked about CM Punk. Did you hear about this? Because, hey, look, you have the president right there. You have the president right there. Why wouldn't you? In fact, you should. ESPN's Mark Raimondi asked him, would WWE be interested in bringing CM Punk back? This is Nick Khan's exact quote. Here we go. Listen, we only have respect for Phil. We appreciate his run here. We appreciate what he did and what he tried to do with the UFC. Not many people can actually get in there and do what he did. So when we have respect for Phil, we wish him nothing but the best. So do they have respect for Phil? Look, we only have respect for Phil. That's all we have. So when we have respect for Phil, we wish him nothing but the best. But when we don't, the guy can fuck right off. But the line that gets me, you saw it. I tried not to break, but every time I read it, we appreciated what he did and tried to do in UFC. I'm sorry, but that is a pristine line. And I don't know if it was meant to be like a soft burial or if it's just like, CEO brain trying to, but holy fucking shit. What a quote. Look, you read this and you're like, WWE's not interested. And honestly, why would they? Why would WWE be interested in bringing CM Punk in? Other than, there is only one reason and that is to stick it to AEW. That's the only reason to do it, because they are doing record gates everywhere they go. We know because outlets report it every time. You know, it's the biggest Raw in Sheboygan in years. You know, it's the biggest payback in the history, the most watched. Hell in a Cell. Who cares? You know, we get those every time. We get reported over and over again. So, considering that, there is no reason for CM Punk to be brought in for a ratings boost. They're doing fine. To boost the ticket sales, they're doing great. Merch sales, maybe, sure. I'm convinced a plethora of WWE fans would gobble up CM Punk t-shirts with the triple W, the double W on the shirt, for sure. But come on. Let's be real here. There's no reason for them to do it other than to stick it to AEW. Again, that's the only principal motivator. Because again, what do you do with CM Punk? You put him on the weekly schedule, you make him run the house show loop? What the fuck? No. This is a part-timer. If he does come in, and it's like exactly like I talked about months ago when the brawl out happened, but this was before WWE started doing monster business, mind you. It was like, they bring him in, and I still think if they do bring him in, it's this type of situation. They bring him in, they give him the Brock deal. He comes in, works a month into a pay-per-view, then disappears for 3 months until we need you for the next one. That's all. No, but of course, folks, the chaos of it all would be fantastic. And look, there's some people who try to shield themselves behind, some kind of a veneer of righteousness and say, oh, CM Punk, we are so tired about talking about CM Punk, we cannot do it anymore. I am upfront with you. I will talk about CM Punk every time. Every time there is news, every time there's something that comes up. This is a podcast in which we will cover CM Punk because he is an integral part of the business. He is a shaker. He is a mover and a shaker even in this business. There's no reason to talk about it. Does it get exhausting? Sure. Does it get infuriating? Absolutely. Sometimes as I'm covering shit, I'm like, why won't this guy just shut up? It's like but at the same time, look, I do this because I feel like doing it, because I want to do it, because I want to talk about pro wrestling. I want to create community. I want, a whole bunch of reasons. And part of talking about pro wrestling is talking about CM Punk. It's just as simple as that. And anyone who does, right? Anyone who does knows exactly why they're doing it. Because I could show you the data. Every time I put CM Punk in a headline, in a thumbnail, not in a thumbnail, well, even when I do put him in a thumbnail, but when I put him in a title, whether it's on a podcast or on a YouTube video, I see returns. I'm like, it's performing a little better. Gee, Willikers, I wonder why. Like, let's not be stupid here. I know how this goes, but I also know that it's really interested. I also know that he's a player in the business. And pretending that he's this that he has to be this persona non grata, that it's like, oh, everyone always talks about him and they're so pathetic to always be talking about it. It's, they're covering a certain part of the business, but they're not covering the business of pro wrestling. That's all. I can understand, let's say, a wrestling podcast that covers minis wrestling, which suddenly I kind of have an impulse to do. You know, they don't want to talk about CM Punk. That has no impact necessarily on their, you know, on their podcast and what they do. You know, for real, you know, but, you know, someone who says, oh yeah, we cover the world of wrestling, but then goes, oh, CM Punk, that guy can go fuck himself. We're not going to talk about him here. You know, everyone is exhausted. The IWC can't handle it. It's like, I couldn't give a shit if people can't handle CM Punk on the internet, and if they lose their mind over CM Punk, that they feel like they have to take sides. Couldn't give, you know, I bring it. CM Punk might or might not be on his way back to WWE, who respect him for what he did and tried to do in the UFC. All right. We are going to talk about not AEW, Impact Wrestling's show that happened this weekend. Victory Road 2023 happened on September 8th at the Westchester County Arena in White Plains, New York. So I haven't caught up with Emergence yet. I have unfortunately not watched Impact Emergence yet. It's still on my list, but you know, I wanted to get some fresh content ready for today's. I was like, okay, well, I have to watch this. It's knowing that, you know, things would probably be, you know, I had a feeling that news-wise things would be a little slim. So I was like, look, you know, we need a proper review. We need to review something, contemporary, something that just happened. Why don't we go with this? But you know, as you know, I watch Impact. I watch the shows, the big shows, the pay-per-views. So this should come to no surprise to anyone. And usually what I say, right, when I watch an Impact show and I come back and I talk with, you know what, folks, Impact, their pay-per-views, the big shows are always a good time. They're mostly hits. You know, they're not perfect shows, but they're mostly hits, and most of the time they're very entertaining, and I always look forward to them. I feel they've been, again, I can't speak for Emergence. I haven't watched it, but I feel the last couple of the last two outside of Emergence Impact shows have been a little so-so. You know, I thought I thought Against All Odds was a pretty good show, you know, but I've seen better, stronger, more interesting than Against All Odds, and better than Victory Road as well. However, there is something of high interest on the show. There's two really good matches. One that I think is great, like legitimately great, and one that is extremely good. But the rest sort of is this hodgepodge of everything that annoys me about Impact, and that makes me content to not watch on a weekly basis, not watch the weekly shows, because if the weekly shows are more of this, and sometimes they are, I'm not into it, you know? But look, enough beating around the bush. Let's talk about the show. There were some pre-show matches. Alan Angels defeated Nunzio, for fuck's sake. Pulling, you know, because Alan Angels, look, everyone is doing open challenges everywhere now. It's like the land of open challenges. Every fucking promotion has people doing open challenges up and down. And, you know, AEW themselves just have three, right? 3 open challenges right now in one promotion. Now, Alan Angels doesn't even have a title. He's just like, hey, who wants to fight me? Well, Nunzio, yes, that Nunzio, Guido Maritato came down to the ring to do it. I would have liked to see this match, but the feed just went black. For the entirety of the match, it came back right for the finish. So who knows what happened there? And then the other pre-show match was Moose and Brian Myers losing to Ace Austin and Chris Bay, the Bullet Club boys, which I really don't want to talk about because I really can't stand Moose. So we'll get right into the main show. Lio Rush successfully retained his Impact X Division Championship against Kushida. Kushida was cashing in his I can't remember the name of the gimmick. He won the thing, the big red X in that match a couple of months ago, and this is where he was cashing it in. I had some high expectations for this match, and well, it didn't. It didn't deliver. I thought this was a good match. I thought it was well worked. A good like a good New Japan mid card match, right? If that makes sense. But there was no second gear to this, and that's why I feel like it under delivered, because these two guys, I feel like in any other circumstance, should be able to tear the house down. Kushida counters a dive to the floor with the hoverboard lock, and then back into the ring, which was cool, by the way. He gets back into the ring, and then later on Lio Rush does a Spanish fly, but it's rolled through by Kushida, who locks in another hoverboard lock. Like Kushida's thing here is like hoverboard lock out of nowhere, and I dug it. You know, it gave the impression that he could end the match at any given moment. And there's a strike exchange with a low blow by Lio Rush while the ref is distracted. He lands the final hour for the win. Again, nothing really wrong with the match. It wasn't a bad match by any stretch of the imagination, but just didn't hit that next gear. It was good, was solid, well done, well performed, but I was expecting more from these guys, and it just didn't happen. The tag team of Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich, aka MK Ultra, defeated Giselle Shaw and Savannah Evans, and this wasn't bad either. Again, look, the highlight of this match was Masha's hot tag. Energetic, dynamic. She's throwing kicks and strikes up and down and everywhere. It is crazy to me, and I think I talk about this every time I see Masha wrestle. It's nuts on how much of a different level she is in regards to every other woman in this match. I'm not saying everyone stinks in this match. I'm just saying that Masha is on another plane of existence. She just competes on another level. Her actions, how she transitions into stuff, the intensity, the authenticity that she brings to what she does, confidence, everything is there. The athleticism, the realism. She's got it all. And a couple of women in this match who had a little trouble keeping up. Anyway, there's some friendly fire because of Savannah Evans, but on Giselle Shaw, and then what's his face? Jay Vidal gets involved as well. But Masha hits the snowplow for the win. Fine little match. There's nothing, again, not a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. Crazy Steve defeated Black Taurus. So, you know, I tried to catch up with the stories and whatnot as we were going in. Crazy Steve he's mystical now. He's got powers. He's a spooky man. He's a spookster. Happy Halloween! I'm a Crazy Steve. I will turn you into a toad. Toil and trouble, double. That's Crazy Steve's gimmick, as far as I've gathered. The idea, though, of this match is that he and Taurus were friends. They were in Decay, the stable, Decay. And now they are former friends. Now they are enemies. So this is like the explosion of the team, the final remnants of Decay. And look, Black Taurus look great here. And I mean, this is just a constant for him. I think he might have some of the best sling blades in the entire business, quite frankly. Pop-up Samoan drop also he pulls off here, which rules. And And Crazy Steve suckers Black Taurus into believing that they're still friends, right? As he's on his knees and going, don't hurt me, cuckoo, I'm Spooky Man. It's not my fault, I am Crazy Steve, you know. So then Taurus goes, and he thinks, right? And should we forgive him because he's like supposed to be like he's like supposed to be a Minotaur, and maybe he's not too bright? Because again, this is me. I retract what I said, because I don't want to imply that Minotaurs are, you know, by definition stupid, and I think that's a very dangerous generalization that I made in regards to Minotaurs, and I apologize. But you know, they do the thing where he begs off, hey, maybe we're still friends, and then he sucker punches Taurus. He gets a fork, he being Crazy Steve, because apparently, and then, you know, commentary lose their minds. They're like, what are you doing? You know. And while the ref gets rid of the fork because he sees it, Crazy Steve gouges the eyes of Black Taurus and lands the diving DDT for the win. I don't think there's too much shenanigans. It took me out of it. And if it wasn't for these little brilliant moments where you're seeing Taurus go and you're like, yeah, more of this. No, it done nothing for me. Want to talk about doing nothing for me? Tommy Dreamer defeated Kenny King to become the new Impact Digital Media title. And not only was the Impact Digital Media title on the line, but Tommy Dreamer's career was as well. He was ready to call it quits. He was about to retire, hang up them boots. He was about to unlace the boots and leave them in the ring and hit the old dusty trail. But he didn't, you know. If anything, like, he came out with a Terry Funk t-shirt, right? Doing a tribute to Terry Funk. And honestly, I think this is the true Terry Funk tribute match, where you're tricking people into believing you're retiring. That is a Terry Funk tribute. They do the whole thing. His daughters are there too at ringside, and I don't know who gets excited at the idea of Tommy Dreamer working in 2023, much less getting a push, because he's being pushed now. Like, he's so, and again, look, respect for Tommy Dreamer and what he did for ECW, what he did in the 90s. And here's a guy who from the onset of his career was like, no, I'm a white meat babyface, and, you know, I'm Tommy Dreamer, and I'm a good guy, and smiles, and, you know, good presentation, clean cut. And then he decides to flip to the dark side and go hardcore, and it's like, then it becomes history, right? And I love Tommy Dreamer matches in the 90s. And Tommy Dreamer versus Raven is one of the greatest rivalries of all time in professional wrestling. I sincerely believe that. But in the year 2023, where he's so rough and his mobility is not great, and because of all of these, his selling stinks, you know, he's not very good anymore. And maybe it's one of these cases where he's seeing his contemporaries in other promotions still having runs, you know, but if you compare it to anyone who was wrestling at the same time period as him, who's still wrestling today, a lot of them are doing a lot better. You know, the ones at least on national television on a weekly basis, right? If we're talking, let's say, Sting, Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio, Dustin Rhodes. This is nothing, you know, they are head over heels more capable than Tommy is. Because look, you know, I said, you know, things that don't do it for me. This is why this match didn't do it for me. Because don't get your signals crossed. I don't think this match was awful. I thought the final third of this match was tremendous. And it all came together. You know, when it all came together at the end, I thought it was pretty fun. But the path to get there, whew, what a slog. Get a Dreamer driver and a pile driver. He teases a moonsault, right? Because Terry Funk. But Kenny King's partner in crime, Sheldon Jean, gets involved. And the ref decides to expel him. But the ref decides to go real hard and jumps out of the ring to escort him back up the ramp. It's like, no, you're going back. You know, the ref's not just standing in the ring. He's motioning him back, so his back is turned to the ring. And while the ref's back is turned to the ring, Heath arrives to attack Kenny King, which then allows Dreamer to win with the DDT. Again, this does nothing for me. I think it's curious. I don't know who this was for. I don't know. And, you know, I'm not done asking that question for tonight, for this review. But I don't know who this was for. Not awful, but not good, you know? And whatever spot we got that, you know, towards the end, that everything coming together, as much as I thought, oh, okay, this is pretty fun, it didn't save the majority of the match. You know, at least there's a bright spot is what I'm trying to say. Jordynne Grace defeated Deonna Purrazzo. Very good match here. Now, this ruled. This was a blast. Two women who have incredible chemistry. And it's always a treat to see them fight each other. And the story here is that, you know, Jordynne Grace was gone from Impact for a while, and this was her return match. And she was coming up with Purrazzo, because the story here is that Jordynne Grace has never defeated Deonna Purrazzo in singles one-on-one competition. She's a goof. No, I'm kidding, because that's the story. So, big comeback match. Of course, she had to win, right? You know, there's sometimes, look, again, all of this worked, even if the ending was predictable. Sometimes wrestling is very simple, folks. In fact, you know what? Most of the time, it's pretty simple to book when you have talented people to drag along. But you know what? This was a moves match. This was moves, brother, and it was great. It was fun. It ruled. Lots of Michinoku drivers by Jordynne Grace, who also lands that superplex jackhammer combo, which it just hits me just exactly in the right spot. I loved it. Purrazzo lands a stuffed pile driver. She calls it the coup d'etat because she's so sophisticated. I love Deonna. She plays counter offense, but Jordynne Grace lands a power bomb, a German suplex by Purrazzo, backpack tombstone pile driver by Jordynne Grace, and Purrazzo reverses out of a muscle buster into a spinning head scissors and right into a Fujiwara armbar. Just great stuff. You're just looking at this poetry. This rules. But Jordynne Grace pummels Purrazzo. She pummels Purrazzo. And lands the Juggernaut driver for the win. I'll tell you the thing that annoys me the most about Jordynne Grace's matches. The thing that annoys me the most about Jordynne Grace matches on Impact has nothing to do with Jordynne Grace. It's commentary who have to say the word Juggernaut every 47 seconds while they're calling the match. Like, it feels like they have a mandatory quota of times they have to use the qualifier Juggernaut. We get it. We understand what her nickname is. But I know where this is from, right? This is Tom Phillips, right? Fuckface. We know why he calls his stuff like this, because was trained by WWE, who drove it into his head. You got to use the nicknames. The Juggernaut. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Let's dial it back. And Matt Raywald, again, another super very nice guy. That I've had the opportunity to chat with, and don't get, lovely man, but he's, in the same, he's from the same school. So they have the same reflexes, and they keep hammering the nickname home, where I'm like, just be normal. Call her Jordan. Call her Grace. Juggernaut. The Juggernaut. Yeah. And maybe it's me, because I was around at the time for the X-Men I'm the Juggernaut bitch meme. Maybe that word sort of has maybe it's sort of poison for me. It could also be a thing. But frankly, I think it's too much. And that's the thing that annoys me the most about the matches. It's the people calling it. Because otherwise, this was fantastic. A very, very, very good match. And then we get the complete and other opposite. An anything goes match between Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray, and PCO. And this is one of these 9-minute, 10-minute matches that feels like a 30-minute match. When this match was done, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, thank God it's finally over. And I look at my clock and I'm like, holy shit, this lasted 10 minutes. This was awful, kids. It's one thing to have Tommy Dreamer have, a last hurrah, whatever you want to call it, which ultimately is fine. Again, I don't know who it's for. But in the land of matches that I do not understand who they're for, I can see a little more someone who might be really attached to Tommy Dreamer and seeing him get one last run with the title. I can see how someone could get behind that, as opposed to Bubba Ray and Pierre-Carl Ouellet putting whatever the fuck this was. And I don't know how anyone is invested in this. The story, because it's Bubba Ray. There's a story here. Bubba Ray is trying to murder PCO. And I'm not trying to be cute and be, you know how I get sometimes, and I'm excited talking about wrestling. They're killing each other. They're going to kill each other. They're murdering each other. No. The story here is Bubba Ray wants to terminate the life of PCO. Send him to the choir celestial. Because PCO's gimmick, right, is that he is not human. He's Frankenstein, right? He puts, he uses jumper cables on a battery and puts them on his nipples. That's what he does. He is not human. PCO is not human. So he can't die. There's even in some of there were skits. I'm gonna tell you. I'll tell you something. If you're sitting around going, like Warren Hayes, and you're going, hey, you know what, this MJF, man, call these skits, man, they're the pits. I fucking hate them. They're terrible. And I'm going off on this. And then I look at this bullshit that Bubba Ray and PCO put on. This legitimately, I do not know who it's for. I do not know who is entertained by this. This is 10 minutes of my life that I demand to get back. What form do I sign? Who do I have to talk to get these 10 minutes back? Said it in the chat. Literally, car crash wrestling. He runs him over with a fucking car. And he's going, finally, he's dead. And he's not dead. And then it's a shit match. Plotting. Worst type of plunder match. And you know what? I say this every time I review an Impact. I'm kind of done with PCO because I feel like PCO has been one note for a long time. the match he had with Steve Maclin, I can't remember which show it was exactly. Was it, but earlier this year, where Steve Maclin just decided to empty out his body of every single drop of blood that he has. You know what match I'm talking. That was a spectacle, right? And I sat here and I remember telling you all, I was like, look, I can't rate this match. I can't tell you this was a great match. All I can say is that I was completely enamored with this match. I was overtaken, and that you should, if you can stomach the blood and just something that is outrageously violent, please go right ahead and do it, you know? But this here, but outside of that, PCO, he's one note. It's like, oh, he's gonna do a moonsault and he's gonna do something reckless with his body, and it's PCO, and like it's been that for, when did he start this big comeback, right? Because this, look, not taking anything away from him. This is a guy who decided to reinvent, and he was getting no bookings anywhere, nowhere at all. Then he starts doing these social media posts where he's posting himself on video with his manager at the time, you know, the little guy from Montreal, the dog's like this, you know what I'm talking about. The name escapes me right now. And they're doing things in his garage, and he's, you know, doing the jumper cables on the nipples and the electricity and all that stuff. And this, you know, people start going, wow, this guy is nuts, and so on and so forth. Then he starts getting some more bookings and more bookings. He ends up on Ring of Honor, he ends up on Impact, and good for him, legitimately, if he can get himself over and get some bookings and get himself working again, because he's going to at least have a better outward legacy than if he had just wrapped it up the way it had been, you know, being, you know, whatever the fuck it was, the pirate. Anyway, it doesn't matter. No, he did other stuff after that. I know. The point being is that ever since then, it's been like, look at this guy doing a moonsault to the floor and landing flat on it. Like, it's one note. It's always the same thing. So, he's not Zack Sabre Jr., where he's reinventing his offense at every match. PCO matches have spots, and he's been doing them for, it feels like 11 years. Probably more like 5. It's always the same thing. So I can't get excited for these matches anymore. I can't get excited for PCO. And don't get me started on Bully Ray. And what a shit finish to this match on top of that. What an absolute shit finish. PCO, if you haven't seen it, God bless you. Let me walk you through this insane finish where he has a table in the ring, he being PCO, and he's laid Bubba Ray on top of it. So he goes to the top rope to do the fucking, what is he called? The deanimator, whatever the hell he calls it. And he threw the table, but the table doesn't give. It doesn't crack. I am the table, cue the song. But what happens is that the table sort of tips over. So PCO goes on, starts ramming onto Bully Ray, and then you hear Bully Ray, clear as day, do it again. Do it again. He's not calling audibles. He is screaming audibles. Like, you think John Cena's bad. You thought, Will Ospreay with fucking Tetsuya Naito was bad. So PCO reaches over to the table, tries to get it back up, but one of the legs is bent. Okay, it's not like the table, the structure is fine. It's one of the legs. It's one of these gimmicks where, it's like, like a tube, just one tube that goes like this, and you have both ends that support. And one of the ends is bent. So he's like trying to straighten it. With one hand, he's going. So what happens then? What does Bully Ray? Bully Ray gets up to help him up off the table, because he probably doesn't see what PCO's trying to do. He probably doesn't see that the table leg is bent. He's lying on his back, and he's going, what the fuck is this guy doing? Put the fucking table up. So Bully Ray gets up to set the table up. that he's going to be laid upon immediately after to do the spot again. So as he's putting the table up, he realizes the foot is bent. He's like, oh shit. And he's sort of bent over the table, and PCO's going, wait, this doesn't make sense. And he starts hammering Bully Ray as Bully Ray's putting the table up. Like a complete nonsense thing. So they set up the table in a corner, and then PCO sort of throws Bully Ray. Look, Bully Ray launches himself into the table, ultimately, to finish this fucking match. Disaster is what this was. This was bad, folks. This was bad. And I do not know. And it's weird. It's funny how every time I watch an Impact show, every time the low point for me, every single fucking time, is a Bubba Ray match. Every time. I'm convinced I'd go back and listen to my own tape. And I could not find me saying, hey, you know what? This Bubba Ray match is really good. I enjoyed myself. I'm always a low point. But this was bad. This was a car wreck. Things would pick up as the Rascals successfully defended the Impact World Tag Team titles against the Motor City Machine Guns. Of course, this was pretty good. Why would it have been anything else? It was very good. Not the match I was expecting. Again, I thought this underdelivered a little bit. I don't know why your world champion, Alex Shelley, is doing this. Then again, I understand why you didn't book your world champion in a singles match tonight. We'll get to that in a second. But I enjoyed this match. I thought this was very good. I thought that there was some pizzazz missing here. Maybe they have another one in the pipeline. Maybe they have something else coming up. But solid work by everyone involved. And every time you see the Motor City Machine Guns wrestle, it's a treat. Great creative offense every time. Like, two guys have been doing this together for, 50,000 years. This is what it looks like. They're going to be one of the most severely underrated teams of this era of pro wrestling. I don't know, good match. I got nothing to say really more than that. I thought it was a good match. Then we had the Impact Knockouts World Title match where Trinity successfully retained against Alicia Edwards. And I have trouble thinking of a women's match that I would least want to watch than Trinity versus Alicia Edwards. Like, I don't know, other than giving Trinity just a successful defense to put in her belt. Good for her. But other than that, I mean, this is Alicia Edwards, second from the top on a pay-per-view. What are we doing here? And especially when the previous women's match that we had on this show was so good. It was so good. You look at this and you're like, my God, man. Is this one of these situations, that your talent pool is, your top people are so high that the next level under is just like a sheer drop and we go, Jesus Christ. Alicia Edwards does she does the coziest body scissors I have ever seen. Like one that you'd just be like, it'd feel comfortable. It'd feel nice, warm, and cozy. You'd be like, oh yeah, this feels nice. But poor Trinity's there trying to sell it. Alicia Edwards can't even lock her fucking feet together to make sure that it stays in. It's like she's all over the place. I think even Trinity sort of pushed her feet together. From that point on, I was like, what are we doing? A fucking body scissors. I could apply a credible body scissors to someone. Me. Eddie Edwards gets involved, and then later Frankie Kazarian and Tracy Brooks come out to get Eddie off of, get things back on track. This fucking feud with Eddie Edwards and Frankie Kazarian will not end, and their wives are involved in this as well. This will not end. I think they have been feuding since 1902. And Tracy Brooks, look, you want to talk about someone else anyway. Like, I thought Kazarian and Edwards were done. But this is like, I think I've said this 3 times this year. I thought they were done. But they're not done yet. Yes, I was there for their first match. Then Alicia Edwards tries to use a kendo stick while there's all this stuff, and then Trinity locks in the Starstruck for the win. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Cage Match has this at 6.52, and I'm like, what's wrong with you people? What is wrong? This is not good. This was not a good match. By comparison, they have PCO and Bubba Ray at 2.92, and I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. And then finally, we had the main event, Josh Alexander defeating Steve Maclin. Now, this was a tremendous match. Now, if there's anything that I'm like, okay, well, at the very least, sitting through fucking PCO and Bubba Ray, and a 2023 Tommy Dreamer match, and fucking Alicia Edwards trying to make a body scissors look like something that hurts. This made it up for it. And this is not shtick. It made up for it because this match is tremendous. And I would even go as far as to say that this is possibly the best match I've seen from Impact Wrestling this year. And look who's back to carry these great matches. A guy who's been gone for quite a while and everyone's been sort of struggling, and a guy who was on a roll, was on a tear last year, nothing but fantastic top level matches every time. Now we come over here. He's back. Tremendous match. And I don't want to be denigrating Steve Maclin. This is not me saying that this was a carry job. Absolutely not. Steve Maclin, a lot of people talking about most improved, so on and so forth, and I hear all sorts of weird shit. Steve Maclin is a guy who has improved, reinvented himself in Impact, and he legitimately comes across as a tough guy, as a top tier level dude. And this match was tremendous. Great story leading into it as well with Maclin and Alexander, never having the chance to fight over the title, and they go hard on each other early on, with Maclin targeting the hurt shoulder, the surgically repaired arm of Josh Alexander, who lands a brain buster on the apron, and then 10 German suplexes in a row. Just a fantastic spot where I praise Maclin for taking all of them, because those gotta suck. German suplexes have to suck to take. And he took 10 of them in a row, in a spot where you're like, oh, he's gonna do 3. Oh, he's doing a 4th, a 5th, a 6th. And I'm like, come on. I'm standing up and I'm like, come on, brother. I love that kind of shit. Maclin, so he, after the number 10, Alexander covers and Maclin kicks out and goes right into an armbar. And you see what kind of match this is going to be at this point. You're like, okay, this is right up my alley. Dive by Maclin. Alexander goes for a corner move, but he tries to lift himself up, but his arm gives out. Oh shit, he's in trouble. Big strikes by both guys. Low cross body by Alexander. Pile driver by MacLeod. Powerbomb backbreaker by Alexander as well. Just great stuff. And then finally, Alexander, he's like, you're fucking with my arm. I'm going to fuck with your groin. You heard me. Those are words that just came out of your mouth. Just came out of my mouth. Steve MacLeod had a groin injury that took him out of action for a while. So our boy Josh is like, all right, kick. Goes right after that. Corner spear and the KIA by MacLeod, but Alexander rolls to the floor. Another dive by MacLeod, but this time Alexander grabs him midair and just tosses him. Just tosses him like he's a sack of turnips. And they get back into the ring and they just fucking laying into each other. MacLeod lands 2 suplexes, some in and outs, kick to the groin by Alexander, and that's enough for him to land the C4 spike for the win. I thought this was expertly done. I thought the story they told in ring was fantastic. The injuries coming into play. Alexander just, instead of working it, just used it at the most precise, specific moments. Whereas, MacLeod was just like going ham on the shoulder, on the arm. Alexander was like, no, I'm gonna take it nice and slow here. I'm gonna strike you when you least expect it, and that's what we got. So honestly, just a fantastic main event. A tremendous match. I would say, go out of your way to see it. I thought this was tremendous. A fantastic match on an otherwise entirely forgettable show that you do not need to waste your time on. If you want to seek out Jordan Grace and Deanna as well, I thought that was worth it. But no, Victory Road 2023 is a show that I cannot recommend. I can recommend 2 matches, one very strongly, but the rest can be, well, that can die. It can go, why doesn't Bully Ray, why doesn't Bubba Ray feud with this show? Why doesn't he do that? And try to kill it. Victory Road is not human. Oh, shut up, Warren. Should we talk? Look, I should do the thing here. We should talk about a little bit about AEW's business these days. Because there's a lot of now that the dark cloud has lifted from All Elite Wrestling, there's a lot of we need some more stuff to get mad at, right? We need some more discourse. We need some more things where people can get unreasonably angry at now that the dark cloud has dissipated away from the company. I know. Here's the thing, let's start with Collision. Let's start from the top here. The doom and gloom over Collision is ridiculous, and I hope everyone with half a brain realizes it. Only weirdos are gonna slam hard into it and be like, oh well, CM Punk. We saw the ratings today, and I don't want to dive too deep into the Collision ratings, but there is a side by side comparison that you can do. Whereas last week, people, the Collision rating was the worst, right, in history of the show, whereas this week everything was back up despite the college ball, despite the college football, and all the competition that came from that, and despite the fact that CM Punk was gone, because everyone last week was telling me, Warren, Collision is dead, CM Punk is gone. Look, this is the ratings. This is what's going to happen now. It is a dead show. No reason to continue moving on. Hang on. Let's give this a couple of weeks. And if I see a trend, if we see the downward trend, then yeah, maybe. But also, let's not forget that it's football season for multiple reasons, multiple leagues, I should say. There's college ball, and then there's the NFL, and so, and on top of that, last weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend previous, right, when there was the terrible rating, there was a WWE pay-per-view, and we saw that WWE Saturday night pay-per-views will have an impact on the on the ratings. I'm losing my brain here. They will have an impact, probably a bigger impact than a lot of people anticipated. Collision's going to be okay. Collision didn't need CM Punk. Well, no, sorry. Collision doesn't need CM Punk is what I should say. He kicked it off, whatever, and so on and so forth, and been doing decent ratings for a Saturday and its time slot, and it's okay. But if the second week after a really poor rating it bounces back like it did today, well, I think everything's going to be fine. I think they're going to be okay in regards to the show, and it still feels the same. It hasn't become Dynamite 2, which again is super important. Can't underscore that enough. Collision has to have a look and feel that is very different, and especially a very different feel than what you see on Wednesday nights. And I thought this past Collision was very good. I had a good time. I enjoyed it. So it's important that it stays on that front, and I think it's going to be okay. But we still have to give it a few weeks, multiple weeks, because we have to see how this is all going to continue to behave in regards to live sports, college football. And then the NBA, and then the NHL, and then even before that, there's the MLB playoffs. Like, it's just going to be nonsense, right? So we have to just figure it out. And I'm sure everyone in AEW Towers at Warner Bros. Discovery looked at the rating this week, and they were like, all right, no cause for alarm, kind of thing. Convinced. Hey, Will Davis. Nice to see you, a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. Good to see you. So on that front, I think all the doom and gloomers are full of it, and there's quite a few of them. Just people who say any kind of nonsense and don't observe facts. Just don't sit down and look at facts and the observable, the quantifiable. You have TV ratings. We have all sorts of data to back shit up. And one of the things that we have data on that we can to back shit up is attendance for live shows. And listen, as much as AEW and TV ratings is doing fine, Dynamite has a nice cozy little spot that's doing great numbers. Solid numbers, week after week after week after week. You look at you look at their curve, and it's basically flat. It's just going like this, just a little tremolo, just a little tremble. Collision is not the disaster that the doom and gloomers would like it to be. But attendance, though, that's an entirely different story. And this is a talk that we have to have, and we cannot associate this with CM Punk because this issue has been around for a while. And if you listen to both my Dynamite and Collision reviews, it's something we touch on at the start of every show where we talk about the attendance. And say, well, look, this Dynamite is in the average. We sort of found an average of 3,000, 3,500 per show for Dynamite, Collision sort of falls around that area as well. But, we sort of look at that and then we see, last night's Dynamite is in the average, or is a little above, a little below. But never am I sitting here saying, wow, 3,500. Never sitting here saying, what a great number. They did 3,800 distributed, according to WrestleTix. All our data comes from WrestleTix, of course. So no, like these are not great numbers, you know? They're just not great numbers. And you look at what's at the upcoming slate right now, and you thought the Canadian tour was bad? Now we're in AEW's, you know, domestic market. We're in its playground, in its court. Cincinnati, look, by the time I'm recording this on Tuesday, Tuesday night, September 12th. So by the time that you're listening to this, maybe Dynamite's already been done. Maybe there's been an explosion of tickets. But as I'm recording this, 2,190 tickets have been distributed for this show. 2,190 tickets for the Heritage Bank Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is the hometown of one of their top stars. A 17,000 seater arena. $2,190. Oh, Warren, it's just this one show. Collision. State College, Pennsylvania. Britt Baker's alma mater. 2,426 distributed. The CM Punk's no longer around. It's not as if Collisions were tearing the house down. You know, it's not as if Collisions beforehand were this unstoppable force of nature when it comes to ticket sales. They were in the averages. You know, last week's 3,407 distributed. Then a good number for this environment, for Collision. 4,493. When was that? The United Center. Oh, wait. It's only 4,493 in the United Center. That's not good. It's still not good. It's better than what they've been doing, but it's not good. Collision, August 19, 3,288 tickets. CM Punk was still around. 5,420 tickets at the Greensboro Coliseum. That was a big one. They almost sold out their capacity here, so that's good. That's a success. Now, there we go. I'm getting confused in the spreadsheet. There we go. 4,763 in Hartford. And good, like above average. But again, we're not tearing the house down. We don't have these tremendous Collision numbers that CM Punk was allegedly bringing in. Things that already started to taper down. These were still good because he still felt fresh upon his return. People were excited. They had got to understand what Collision was. But as we moved on, tickets started to fall off. And Dynamite is in the same position too. And Arthur Ashe right now, as I'm recording this, Arthur Ashe, in 2 weeks, 5,818 tickets. That is half the amount of tickets. That's half the number of people that attended last year in Arthur Ashe. We're not going to talk about 2021. That was special in and about itself. But this is embarrassing. You know what the setup is for? 12,129. That's embarrassing, folks. Collision, after that, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 2,183. Dynamite, after that, 1,878 from Bloomfield, Colorado. There's one little silver lining here. After they announced Danielson for the Wrestle Dream versus Zack Sabre Jr. for the Wrestle Dream show, they moved about 1,100 tickets. in Seattle. They're at 3,373. Still not great for a show that's in 3 weeks. You know, you've got Arthur Ashe. You have Arthur Ashe next week. You have Colorado the week after, and then a couple of days after that, we got Wrestle Dream. Again, like I don't know what to if you want to talk about ratings up and down and all around and and this to me, and I've always been on an attendance guy. This is the most palpable, real deal, physical, observable data that you can get as to whether a wrestling show is working or not. For real though, this is it here. The number of people you're drawing to pay money, the number of people you're getting to open up their wallets and give money to you so they can watch your show is extremely telling. And right now, AEW is not doing great. And it's not as if CM Punk was this fantastic draw and we've dropped off by 25% or so. The drops are single digits. You know, it's not 25% drops. It's not 70% drops. The issues were there beforehand. How do you fix this? This is the question. Now, you know, I had my pal Fred Moreland from the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy podcast, which is a weekly AEW podcast that's also available on the Voice of Wrestling podcast network. He joined me this weekend to do what we called the state of AEW, right? We sort of looked at the past year and so on and so forth. You know, now that the you know, everything is done and over and gone, you know, where are we at right now? And one of the things that we kind of touched on, among many things, is that now it feels like we can focus back on talent that made this show special to begin with. You know, there was a time that AEW was doing much better than this, much better business than this on a regular basis and for months on end. Who were they focusing on? They were focusing on, you know, they had Kenny Omega in big spots. They had the Young Bucks, the Elite. They had Jon Moxley. They had Hangman Page, MJF. There was a core group of people that everything was built around, that kept everything exciting. And then for the past year or so, a lot of them are off TV, or they're in these awkward positions. You're not quite sure what they're doing with them, or they're just not around at all. They have one tremendous match, at Revolution against Jon Moxley, and then you don't see them for months, really. Appearing as the fourth guy in a four-man stable. It's tremendous, and it's not as if the things that they're doing isn't tremendous. They've been having high-quality matches, high-quality television shows, incredible pay-per-views. It's not as if the quality isn't there. It's not as if the death of talent is not there. I think this company, AEW, is trying to be something it's not. It's looking at the success of the other guys. It's letting it slip in a little bit, letting things taint. And again, this was to be expected with the quantity of producers, writers, agents, whatever you want to call them, from the other place coming in here. It was inevitable that these types of things were going to happen. And I think the more AEW strays from its identity, from what makes it special, which is great pro wrestling, the more it slips away from that, it will not translate into solid business. Sorry to harp on this again, but if MJF and Adam Cole, if the Brochachos angle was as hot as I was led to believe it is, Why aren't there more proverbial butts in seats? It does great TV. Sure, I cannot argue that. It does, from what I am understanding, great merch sales. Fantastic. Great live crowd reactions on top of that. I'm all in on all of this. Don't get me wrong. And again, I don't want to trash most of what they do because I enjoy most of what they do. As it stands right now, the dark spots for me on the brochachos stuff is the vignettes, which I think were not funny and not good, and the main event of All In, which I really didn't like. Those are the two black spots for me. I think everything else has value, but it might not be that driver that everyone seems to think it is. Otherwise, where's the thing? Where are the tickets? If this angle is so hot, what are we doing here? No disrespect to Adam Cole or Max, but Wembley didn't sell out on the strength of that match. Didn't sell 81,030 some tickets on the strength of their match, on the announcement of their match. That was what happened in Wembley this year. Was lightning in a bottle, will not be able to be recaptured next year. Next year, they are going to have to feed a big time main event. They will have to lean into their main event to get people into the building. Or the other observation you can make, especially after a show like All In, All Out, excuse me, is maybe AEW is kind of like if you do a television comparison, maybe it's an ensemble cast as opposed to, a couple of big stars. Maybe it's a thing about a whole bunch of people elevating the entire show. Well, if so, I think it was pretty fucking clear at All Out who people want to see and what they want out of their AEW. Because look, if the CM Punk influence was that bad, where was this? Where were these the fans that I was told were going to be there? That Warren, you're going to hear CM Punk chants throughout the entire evening. They're going to take over the show. They're going to hijack the show, just like they used to do with WWE. They were loud in one match the entire night. One match. It came through on TV. And a rightfully so one too was with the Bucks. I get, not bemoaning anyone. That's just a fact. Can't even blame them for doing it. I really think that the more AEW heads into a territory that makes it feel more and more like the other guys, that they will not be able to maintain an audience. I think the audience came to AEW. The audience that came to AEW were people who rejected, ultimately, what WWE was offering and were excited for or at the very least were excited for something new. Because with WWE pay-per-views on Saturday nights apparently taking a big chunk out of Collision viewership, I think the crossover is a lot more significant than what I had imagined, what a lot of us had imagined. We're not on two islands as much as a lot of people would like to think we are. I think the Venn diagram between people who watch WWE and people who watch AEW are a lot closer than we think. So maybe that little bit of data, that little observation there completely invalidates my theory, my idea that no, we should tread lightly around the sports entertainment aspects of AEW, and we should focus on what we really like. But maybe to finish up a point that I had started but didn't quite properly wrap up, during the past year, for multiple dark cloud reasons, there were many AEW fan favorites that people were not treated to, that were kept off TV or were kept off television or were or didn't have as big or as significant a presence. And you could probably also chalk that up to contract negotiations, right? Because look, if I'm Tony Khan and I have Kenny Omega who's sending me signals and saying, yeah, I'm entertaining offers from, everywhere. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Maybe if I'm Tony Khan, I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not going to put him on TV that much, which is fair, right? You're not going to heat up a guy for the other guys, are you? I wouldn't think you would. I think there's a tremendous amount of circumstances surrounding this past year that kept a lot of wrestlers that a lot of AEW fans really love and are attached to and who they identify with the product that were kept off TV and led in a decline of interest because it's like, or weren't put, not necessarily kept off TV, but were kept out of prominent positions on the card. And I think we need to circle back to that. I will continue to hammer home that the Young Bucks need the world titles. I don't give a shit. And I still think it was a mistake at Wembley. That's one thing they need to do. Kenny Omega, I know he's a nice guy and whatnot, but get him back in a world title program. Same thing with Page. Adam Page has to be in a world title program. All these things have to come together. But to top this all off, maybe all of what we're talking about here right now doesn't even matter. Because from everything we've been reading, everything that's been, all the crumbs, the tidbits that have been put out here, AEW is lined up for a big rights deal themselves over the next couple of months. I talked about this on my Collision review this week. In case you didn't catch it, I'm going to reiterate the point here. Big money deal means, that you don't have to worry about attendance as much, pay-per-view buys as much. You're not scratching for the, those last couple of thousand tickets or couple of last, maybe those 2 to 3 more thousand pay-per-view buys. You're not scratching as hard. You're not as panicking as hard if something underperforms or underdelivers because you're like, you know what? Doesn't fucking matter. Because I got the money's guaranteed, baby. And maybe this discussion here, ultimately, for people in AEW, for the suits, maybe they're like, hey, you know what? It's all right. We're doing under 3,000, we're doing under 2,500 tickets in Cincinnati this week. No big deal. That's fine. We've got $1 billion coming in. Whatever. Who cares? I'm just throwing a number out there. I'm not trying to pretend I know anything. Okay. So that's probably, something it might make all this discussion moot at some point. But nonetheless, even though you have a big $1 billion deal coming up, let's say, assuming, speculation, and you have all this money, you have all this guaranteed money, so you're not as worried about bad gates and so on and so forth. An empty stadium is an empty stadium. An empty arena is an empty arena. And if you're doing a television show, that comes across as poor. It doesn't come across well and doesn't make your product look hot. I've seen a lot of Folks around me are discussing the price of tickets as well. You know, AEW positioning itself as a premium product with a premium price, and maybe they should lower their ticket prices a little bit. And I understand that point to a degree, where I'm also very much on the side of, look, if you have a product that is hot, that people will want to buy, that people will want to go see, they will open up their wallets and pay whatever ridiculous price you have to go see your show. Look at WWE. Look at fucking Taylor Swift. If your product is hot, people will pay for it. So I get the idea of lowering ticket prices. Honestly, I really do. I really, really do. Because I don't think a pro wrestling Taylor Swift comp is fair. I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison. There's different forces at play here, but the reality is nonetheless that Taylor Swift is hot. She's a hot act. So people are ready to trample their grandmothers to get tickets. AEW right now, maybe not. WWE, yeah, there's, sellouts are close to sellouts. The good question here in the chat, why don't the hot pay-per-views translate into the weeklies, into like better ratings? And it's a very good question, but quite frankly, it's always been the other way around. Your weekly TV needs to boost your pay-per-views. That's the essence, right? That's the thing, is that the TV is there to get people to buy your big shows. So that's doing its job. Eventually, like the other side becomes word of mouth. And you can only assume that the people who are purchasing your pay-per-view on the Sunday are the people who are watching anyway on Wednesday. So it's not a new audience, and it's not exactly how you create a new audience. Sure, there's word of mouth, so on and so forth, but you still have to buy the show if you want to see the show. And it's still a premium price show. It's still what, $50, $50-$60 in the US. So, it's not as much a one-to-one thing, especially when the business model is the opposite. The business model is TV shows for a big pay-per-view. And at this point, AEW pay-per-views have a killer reputation on their own. Anyway, we're not out of the woods yet when it comes to the business aspects of it. But look, you have to keep an eye on the attendance. You have to keep an eye on how things are going. It's not great right now. We're underperforming even the average that we've been having for the past few months. It's not a great time. It's not great, and I don't think it's as intrinsically entwined with CM Punk as many bozos would like you to believe. And we're going to wrap this up. Yeah, we're going to wrap it up. It's time to close off the weekly wrestling inspection. Solo. Hey, thank you everyone for joining me tonight as we recorded the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast live here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. We do that every week, 7 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday, even on nights where Becky Lynch is not winning the NXT Women's Championship. Yeah, we do it every single Tuesday. So if you ever want to drop by, it's always a good time. Q&As and games and all sorts of stuff that we do with the community, things that don't make it to the final cut of the podcast. If you want in on it, well, you can do it. And if you want the nearest experience to that, join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. The link is in the description. Come and join our nice little, cute little chubby community that you just want to pinch the cheeks and go, I will be back on Thursday for the AEW Dynamite review, which we do on a weekly basis, and of course on Sunday for the Collision review. In the meantime, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like on this video, or if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, a rating on Spotify, 5 stars ideally, and a review on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star one on top of that, those would be great and help grow the show tremendously. Thank you everyone for sticking around this evening, for hanging out, for having a good time. I had a fantastic time with all of you, and I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time.